I was wondering what you found so interesting to talk about before I came up here. But, oh, I must say a few things. I'm Bob Benson. I work with the Red Dragon Reading Series thanks to my good colleagues, some of whom, well, all of whom are here, and I want to say a word about. And I directed writing programs at Harvard for 39 years until they threw me out. And I came over here and worked for a semester or two, and they threw me out, but I'm back here now. SUNY smartened up a lot quicker than Harvard did. So my thank yous to Catherine Bashaw over here for all her arranging, and for Ruth Carr over back there, taking a reticent seat, and Lori Manina, who set up our goodies and this facility for us. Thank you very much. There are many people who contributed to this moment, to this Oneonta Literary Festival that we are now a part of, and I want to make some acknowledgement of that too. The planners here include Suzanne Black, George Hovis, Roger Hecht, Sheena Mason, and where did I go? Did I miss George Hovis? And at Hardwick, Brad Fest and Tessa Yang. Many thanks to them. To Tina Winstead at the Huntington Memorial Library and Rachel Fest at Kemen. To Jim Havener of the Green Toad Bookstore. I hope you make your way down there and sample their delights. To Lynne, Kemen, director, and Bertha Rogers, the founder of Bright Hill Press and Literary Center in Treadwell. To Teresa Winchester, all at Seagull in Hometown Oneonta for the great article that is in. Yes, you can applaud, you can applaud. It's in this paper. There are a few copies over here. And then to Allison Collins for a great article in Upstate Life. A free magazine, comes out with a big spot. So we have the riches of the local journalists for sure. I want to thank a lot of other people, but they're not here, so I'm just going to let it go. The Oneonta Literary Festival was instituted to honor I need a script or I'll be here all night. To honor the literary community, writers and readers, such as yourselves, and organizations that support literature in the area and bring them into closer and more visible and productive relationship and partnership. Tonight, the Oneonta Literary Festival continues its community building mission by bringing a community-based group of poets, the Hells Angels, Thundering, Nanoparticle, Avalanche, Poetry, Nerd, Intemperance, Sticker Shock Society. That's the last time I have AI write my scripts. The Seeing Things Poetry Workshop. Thank you to everybody. This community of poets, members of the Seeing Things Workshop, will be doing a showcase reading, which means that each poet will showcase a brief selection of her or his poems, then introduce the poet to follow. So I only have to do this once. Please feel free to applaud like mad for each poet before the next introduction. It helps their egos. We need that. I'd like to say something to the students, particularly who are here, especially those who are discovering themselves as writers. In a moment, you'll hear these poets introduce each other and say, among other things, what they do, besides write. For most, nearly all writers earn their bread by something other than writing. It's true for almost all the arts, whatever else you do. If you must write or draw or dance or sculpt or play music, you need to support your obsession, but you need to do your art, if it's any to do. And if you're lucky, you will find others like yourself to share your work with and gain their insights and give yours and grow from that relationship. That's what you're about to witness. The results of that fruitful relationship built over the 6 years, for most of us, that we've met under the auspices of the Bright Hill Press and Literary Center. We are pleased to launch this evening a collection of poems by 17 of our members and former members. And appropriately called Seeing Things Too, because it's the second anthology. They're up there on the, there, yonder. The display is there. The book, in case you missed it. Don't trip, don't trip. The book is for sale. It is a special one night reading, only $10. It's down, you know, $18.95 on the cover, but if you got $10, it's yours. But let me introduce our first reader without any further ado. Allison. I should do a Rob Tebow thing. Allison Collins. Is a graduate of Hartwick College. Okay, that Rob, I'm going to break the system. She's the editor of Upstate Life magazine and a writer with the Daily Star and Catskill Life magazine as well. Her work focuses on magnifying the minutiae of every day, the familial, that is what's about her family, feminine experiences, being a woman, and I'm trying to interpret the big words for you, and has been published with, these are, the names of magazines are really something else, aren't they? Blast Furnace Press, Havoc by Splickety Publishing, Shark Reef, Easy Street, Literally Stories, The Raven's Perch, E-Ratio, California Quarterly. This goes on and on.
Just skip it.
I know, but they're so much fun. Okay, she's tough. A mother of 3. She lives in Unadilla with her family. Kind of flattens out right there. All right, let's welcome, please, Ms. Allison Collins.
How is that? Good?
Good.
Thank you, Bob, for that wonderful introduction. We said in the workshop last night, or I said in the workshop last night, that I just write about roadkill and sex, so you could have just said that. Very short, very short. Oh, my first poem is called Bobcat. In summer, my husband saw a mother bobcat trot across the bridge up the road, trailing 3 cubs. Like me, I thought. I knew from his tone so reverent how she must have looked, how sure of her role. He had warned the men working there, all orange vested and steel-toed, to be wary, and they had nodded, agreed, solemn-faced. These big men aligned in their fear of her ferocity, this mother, of her capacity for destruction, like me, I thought. Today, out walking in a different season, she lay, perfectly, improbably immobile. Her body parenthesis at the end of that same bridge. Too muscled, too unmarred for real death. Her ink-spilled mouth still damp. The sunlit, tufted ear, just so. No gore, no wound, nothing leaking. But for a spray of gravel in whiskers and the emerald twitter of fly insistent in eye socket, I wouldn't have believed it. I scooped leaves gone sharp-veined and brittle, the last sprays of goldenrod, asters, one lingering cornflower the color of sky, to cover at least her body, a small dignity mother to mother. I tried not to envy her peace, thought of motherless cubs somewhere, and walked home. The next poem is called Starling. I dream of waking alone, winging out over the unmade bed, adrift and drifting to wonder what it would be like to be less needed, to not hear the sharp-beaked call of all of you wanting, wanting, wanting. At a certain age, I began to understand what Virginia meant about money and a room of one's own. We had a starling in the wood stove once, its jewel neck soot-stained and frantic, and the sound of passerine claws on cast iron, of walled-in wings, lives still in my head, if not the chimney pipe. It took all of us wielding upturned laundry baskets like baseball mitts, and sheets wide-winged and jumpy staged around stairs and doors to shunt her out. We had to work so hard to free a thing that had really trapped herself. The last poem is called Clasped. The chain of my necklace was knotted and I wore it anyway, wanting to wreath myself in something shiny for you. A bowerbird calling, want me, want me, want me. And you noticed and reached with large hands, oil-stained, for my neck, as unthinking I swept aside hair, a curtain lifting, and welcomed you closer. My own hands found pockets, wings folded, and I watched you undo small links of gold, but also me. Something long corded and hard grew molten beneath my breast, like an ingot tossed to a fire I'd forgotten. The sunlight through mullioned windows tiled our two-headed shadow into something tidy as you lingered over replacing at the necklace. With such care, I nearly cried. Next up is Jesse Hilson, and Jesse lives in the Catskills in New York State. He works as a library support assistant in SUNY Oneonta's Milne Library. He has appeared in Hobart, X-Ray, Tragical, Exacting Clam, Misery Tourism, and many other publications. He has published 2 novels, Blood Trip in 2022, and The Tattletales 2023, and a poetry collection called Handcuffing the Venus de Milo in 2022. His short story collection called The Calendar Factory will be published this year, and he has the same handle for Twitter and Instagram, which is @platelet, like blood, 60. Jesse Hilson.
Thank you. Toolbox. Can everybody hear me? I think.
No, can't hear you.
What's that?
Can't hear you.
Can't hear me. Okay. Toolbox. Smartphones are for carving boredom sculptures while at work. Eardrums are for peeling voices from a diner's din. Lust is for creating forks in peaceful empty roads. Guns are for denoting entertaining deaths from not. Voting booths are for performing civic surgery. Women's hair is for conveying interchange took place. Angels are for shifting light cones while you look away. You are for fading like a program at the end. I am for fleeing. That poem and the next one were both worked on at the first Seeing Things workshop, which I attended. It was great. And they're in this. But I'm reading from this, which is my book. Just because this book never comes out from the bookshelf ever, so this is its time to like escape with all of you. This poem is called Hello, Love, also from this evening. Hello, love. You are personified as the ideal that all make cases to, all saying, smile on me, or take my side, as if a judge in robes with gavel who gives verdicts for a bailiff to enforce could find in favor of those plaintive jerks. It's more akin to lotteries, of course. The online dating churn, whatever works. I write this poetry of love with none in mind. I wouldn't want to be so bitter as to frame with thorns a special one, only to resent the pinpricks later. I sometimes wonder if I am a quitter. Better that than lover turned to hater. This next poem is called When Better Then, and I guess I'm going to dedicate it to my therapist who doesn't practice anymore, in Cooperstown, New York, which many of you most likely know where that is. And you'll see in the first stanza why it's Cooperstown. The poem's called When Better Then. When practicing psychotherapy, better to sneak the fastball yawn past the distracted patient at bat than to be caught looking like you just don't care. When adrift on cartoon life rafts, better to be the cannibal watching than the illustrated pork chop strutting oblivious across the deck. When explaining how to play the hyena game, better to keep one rule back from your opponent than be devoured by his beginner's luck. When trapped in an earthquake, better to be in an empty brothel than in a packed church. When trapped inside a mansion, better bird than burglar. And my last poem, we were told to try to memorize these, and Allison did that to all appearances, and it was very good. Very impressive to memorize a poem and speak it from the heart, the mind, everything else. This poem was, I have a daughter, she's 20 years old, but when she was 7, her mother and I had discussions with her about stranger danger and, you know, keeping your eye out for people who are bad. That's sort of where we left it. And she started to delve a little further into the question and asked questions like, you know, why would somebody take me? Why would somebody want to take me away? And we had to talk to her without talking to her, you know what I'm saying? We had to tell without telling everything. So this poem is about that, and it's called I'm Telling My 7-year-old What a Child Abductor Is. And even though I said I would read it from memory, I'm going to take my glasses off and hold the book like this. I think what hurts is being pulled into a child's perceptive mode while knowledge of the evil stays in place, the knowledge every grown-up gets a portion of. Once all atrocities I've ever heard have been recorded here, the worst of all is being given children's ears to hear them all afresh. You can't perceive the world a second time after you've known it once. And yet, how can you prevent yourself from giving off reflections of it endlessly? Thank you. The next poet to read, Elizabeth Huntington, earned her BA from the University of Michigan in English and Religious Studies, and her MA in Marriage and Family Counseling from SUNY Oneonta. Currently, Liz works in SUNY Oneonta's Student Learning Center, providing academic coaching to students and teaching courses. She is the mother of 2 wonderful humans and is partly owned by 2 big dogs. Liz's poetry has appeared in I Stay Home, The Paragraph, Silverfish Review, Seeing Things, Anthology of Poetry, among other publications, and Bright Hill's Ekphrastic Poetry and iPhone Photography exhibit. She was a winner of Lynne Literary Guild's Writers at the Halt Award for her poem Candles. Please welcome Elizabeth Huntington.
Thanks, Jessie. Makes me sound so real. I did not memorize these, nor did I try, because I knew I wouldn't be able to. But I'll do my best to convey them anyway. The first one is called...
Use the mic, okay?
Can you hear it?
Yeah, you gotta speak right into it.
All right. Better?
Yes.
Should I repeat what I said or leave it alone? Okay. The first poem is called Degas, Lost Oeuvre. And Degas went blind in his late years. He struggled with poor eyesight for years. And it's a poem about, it's a body of work. So, Degas, Lost Oeuvre. He cannot see the lift and fall of their limbs, the slow adagio turning their wrists, cupping shadow and light, the inverted palms and elbows following one by one, white lilies tilting in the wind. Losing sight is a slow process. First the colors dim, then the lines that hem the colors in, and then all things dissolve into a sameness that is neither day nor night, no edges to this shrinking circle, this inexorable fading light. The notes still come, one upon the other, canvases of sound erupting on the edge of this vision, sketches of pink, russet, a band of mustard yellow, their exhausted beauty molding now in the damp spring rain, curling in on themselves like an old man in a thread-worn coat, leaning on his cane. In dreams he can see again. 3 notes stagger out of the darkness, shoes tracing arcs in dry chalk, a shuttered crosshatch of tulle netting, and legs, firm stalks to hold them, ribboned round and round as they turn to him and turn to him and turn, offering their throats, their lovely white arms circling as they lift at his hand once more into the light. If the dog had not run into the street, and the teacher had liked you, and your father hadn't died, and the new shoes had fit you, and the priest had been good, and the phone call with the bad news hadn't come during supper. If this place on the page would open like a doorway, or a balcony, or even like a crack in the plaster on a wall in the house of your dreams. If coffee were not a brown stain on the tablecloth, and the wax that the candle left, and the crumpled napkin, and her one sock hiding under your bed. If you had been named his name, And if you had called to her out into that darkling afternoon when the rain came, or the rain had not come, or if it had come later when the tea had been poured and the words were still there inside of you, the ones you want to pull back now out of the cup of her waiting ear. Husband. This house has many doors. The night is raw. The sheets are bone. I walk the black house room to room where it ticks and shifts and the moon is a fist in the lap of the frozen world. The wind comes clanging over chimes, carries their cold uncertainty. I am checking the locks. I am stopping the clocks. Your breath, a ragged scarf, billows round me. Your body lies down with mine, 18 years like this. And this is the last one. Drive. Drive. My grandfather used to take us on summer drives down Pennsylvania back roads through bright, hot mornings, green with corn that danced along both sides of our passing, and the sky wide open as the window I hung out of, testing the air. We looked for farms that nobody lived in anymore, not to buy them, just to look, not to look, but to see and remember, I think, how time passes. Just to wonder, how long can you let a thing go on before there is no going back? We sat in the car as the motor ticked and cooled, and we looked at those lost places. Someone talked, probably. Someone exclaimed about a window or weather clock, or pointed out the rusted tractor by the fallen outhouse, or a tricycle sunken into the yard. I remember only silence and the crows calling into it. Some houses seemed like they could still be home to someone, and I imagined it. Nails, paint, soap, and water, and a spade to make the black earth give something back. Sheets flapping in the yard, a child somewhere crying. Others were broken open, their backs hanging on nothing but memory. They buckled and sagged into their attics. They let the clouds slide through. One leaned and found the limbs of an elm, and then it was a treehouse for a while. One was just a cellar hole with steps leading up into air and white beeches growing tall inside it instead of children. My grandmother got out once, or did I dream it? The car door swinging open to another life, my grandfather calling her, "Edie, come back!" as she crossed a lawn meadow high with milkweed and found a trellis half hidden against the house. She wrested it from the lilac's green skirts and brought it back to us, twisted, rusted, beautiful with climbing metal roses. My grandfather helped her fit it into the trunk. Now I drive to the summer farm my grandparents left behind, pull into what used to be the drive, now soft with grass, and cut the motor. The porches sag. The barn is gone to sky. The tangled apple trees still hold their new hard fruit. Promises, promises. The bees hum. The yellow summer light falls on all that brokenness, those sweet lost dreams, and no one ever coming home again. I don't know why I come here to this empty yard and these shredded curtains and the black watching eyes of this deserted life, except to maybe hear it calling back to me, "Hurry, hurry, there is so little time." And the next poet for your delectation is Bhala Jones. Bhala Jones is a writer and choreographer, has had poetry and short stories published in the Rockford Review, Dear Magnolia, the Green Zine, the Ekphrastic Journal, HML Writers 1, the Methodist Reporter, and the Gulf War Many Perspectives. Her work has been chosen for the Fenimore Museum's Write Out Loud projects 2021 through 2024. Before moving upstate, Bhala Jones had a 30-year career in dance and choreography in New York City, which makes her very interesting indeed. She danced with the New York City Opera, was dancing master at the Cloisters Museum, and served as head of the junior dance division at the Brooklyn Music School. She also taught dance to blind adults at JASA and was artistic director at the Ananda Dancers, She co-choreographed the Brooklyn Nutcracker. Her Virgin's Carol was presented at the Cathedral of St. John the Divine and at the Riverside Dance Festival.
Thank you, ladies.
Are you going to the light?
I am fine. Thank you. Sorry about that, folks. Takes a while for the old dolls to get up. Good evening. It's okay if you say good evening back. Good evening. Thank you.
You're just the microphone.
Not like that, right? Now you see why my friend Nancy is up here to help turn the pages. Now you can't trust me for a minute. Old woman song. I have grieved over open graves full of bones and flowers. I have longed for men I could not have and lain with men I could not love. I have watched as my beauty hid in a webbed cell of years. I have wept for the rough, dry caresses of lusting men. I have outlived husbands, children, grandchildren, and usefulness. And I have learned the hardest thing to outlive is joy. I have my choice of two rather long poems, but I've been told by everybody to read what I want to read. So I'm going to, and Nancy's here to help me so I can hand her the pages. So would you give Nancy a hand, because she gave up her evening to come and turn pages for me. Cassandra in the Ashes. Andromache is crying. I wish she would stop. I sit on hot, blinding bright of noonday flagstones in our burning city's courtyard, and I smell smoke and horse pee, and probably us. We have been here since just after dawn, my mother, my sisters, and I, huddled among the women as if we could hide here. We are hot, thirsty, dirty. Our hair, damp with sweat, falls in tangles thick as snakes. Our clothes are ripped and stained. Our faces marked by over 50 days of siege, streaked with dust, tears, or blood, depending on where we were when their warriors jumped out of the horse. We form a kind of human pile, next to that other pile of loot, weapons, furniture, jewelry, coins, and the gold combs they ripped from our hair. Andromache is crying. She's been crying for hours. She weeps for her dead husband. But Andromache, this is not the time for mourning, it is time for planning, though clearly no one near me has any plan. In the last few hours, our husbands, brothers, lovers, gone forever, whisked away like a street magician's trick. A loss so huge we women have not yet begun to comprehend it. Made passive by grief, we're simply sitting here, waiting for the next thing to happen. Andromache is crying, and I wish to God she would stop. Near my right shoulder, my mother sits between my sisters, one arm around each. She has shrunk since yesterday when she was queen. We will not be together again after today. Never again. Her startling violet eyes are darting like butterflies, wild as her thoughts. She knows we will be poked and pawed in the dark, smelly corners of remote Greek palaces. I know that too. Andromache is crying, and her tears pierce my soul. Across the plaza, tables have been set up where the Greeks are feasting their victory, drinking it mostly. They will be sodden when they come for us. The winners in war divide all the spoils, so we are being viewed, hopefully, by Greek soldiers and war leaders alike. These sweaty, bloody victors will come one by one soon to lift a chin here and an arm there, examining us, making choices as if we were works of art or horses. By nightfall, we will be in some stranger's bed. Wherever I end up, they will make me a slave. Well, I want to belong to a man who has decent slave quarters. So I will keep my head bent, my eyes discreetly down, and I will study their feet. Rich men wear boots into battle. Andromache is crying still, and it's my fault. It's my fault alone, because I knew the pictures in my head never lie. Months ago I saw us just like this, and saw the boiling smoke above the citadel, and Paris dead, and the huge horse that held the end of our everything, standing in the courtyard as it does now. Yes, I saw it, and I told the king, but I am too young and too female to attract belief. He said, "Thank you, daughter." Paternal and unconvinced, he left the chamber. My mother told me men know best. My sisters laughed at me. And this disaster is my fault because I could not make them hear. In my frustration, I want to kick the white-hot stones until my feet bleed and wink my desperate failure sorrow until my eyes swell like Andromache's. But I don't. Because a pair of boots, rich boots, are planted firmly before me. And he says, "She'll clean up well, don't you think? I'm going to ask for her." He speaks to someone I cannot see. A pair of sandals joins him, saying, "Well, suit yourself, my lord. She's pretty enough and royal enough, but she's crazy, of course. She thinks she sees the future." Andromache still cries, but I look up into the face above the boots and try to smile. Thank you. Lynne Kemen is our next reader. She lives in upstate New York with her husband, William Russo, and their 4 cats. Her full-length book of poetry, Shoes for Lucy, was published in 2023, and a chapbook, More Than a Handful, was published in 2020. Her work is anthologized in Earth Care, What We See on Our Journeys, and Seeing Things 1 and 2. She is published in the Ekphrastic Review, Silver Birch Press, The Raven's Perch, Topical Poetry, Lithurian Poetry Journal, La Prisma, and the Blue Mountain Review, as well as many others. Lynne is president of the board of Bright Hill Press and has served on many other not-for-profit boards. She is an editor and interviewer for the Blue Mountain Review and a lifetime member of the Southern Collective Experience. Please welcome Lynne Kemen. You can talk idly among yourselves while I Maybe they're just waiting for me to fall down.
Thank you, everyone. I just want to say for the students who are here, or actually anybody who's sitting here who's not a writer, when I started with the first Seeing Things group, I had taken a 50-year hiatus. I wrote poetry halfway through college, And then someone said something that didn't agree with me, and I was like, well, I'll show him. And I didn't write again. I went on and did other things. And Bob Benson and my group of people who have been dear, dear friends and supporters created a safe space. So Bob said, follow your passion and do it. And I'm here to say, it's never too late. Please do it. My first poem is called Game of Sorry. Summer at the cabin, grace cantilevered, a human bridge, string beans, growth spurts, under quartz light, porch light, a fizz of Welch's grape soda, quiet moment, shouting later, roses building tired, hungry, the inner need to go to sleep, blue and white check tablecloth covered with books, glasses, ashtray, Rose's shock at losing sorry. It's not fair! My second poem is called The Last Wound Up, and there was a wonderful shop in New York City that specialized in all things that were wind-up toys. Many of them were cheap metal, they were also plastic, and it was just the most wonderful little place to go to, whether you were a kid or you were an adult. The Last Wound Up. The Last Wound Up, Columbus Avenue, New York City, wind-up fire trucks, sushi spinning, Nathan joint, crusty, crinkly, cognizant, a crowd of toys around him. His store sign said, "Don't postpone joy. Just call in the cosmos. Carpe fucking diem." I didn't listen. Arrogance leaves a stubborn scent. Long gone, the store's corpse I still visit. The store now a cemetery of dreams. Nathan nagging me like a damned ghost of Dickens. Don't postpone joy. My next poem is called Lazy Afternoon, and it's after Pete De La Roca, who is a wonderful jazz drummer. Late lazy morning, not quite afternoon, Pete La Roca rocks the room. Then with percussion, Sin and two Stevens, Swallow and Con, together, they went beyond Hitchcockian harmony, its shadow play. Sit down, meditate, focus on the fuller brushman, a touch so light that it feels transparent. La Roca has no heavy hand. He scat sings. He scat sings in your head, in your ear. He tickles memories. It's raining blues, drops steady, subtle. Before you know it, you're hypnotized by brushy sounds, like watching snowflakes melt on the windshield. Synesthesia, blues floating, a 1930s film noir full of shadows. Henderson hawks his soul slowly, the rock truly and surly. Such sticks, soft, what light through yonder touch barely breaks. These musicians undertake the work to make it work. Buddies becoming breath to riff in rhythms. The want to whisper. Fingers blistered, rich and rewarding. New York Times in snow. Rough cut sugar cubes. Men cut from jazz and the blues heavy rain. For years, I did not go to any of my student reunions. I never went to a single graduation. I didn't do junior high school, college, college again, master's program, PhD, nope. And then I went back and did a high school reunion, and now I do them all the time. Ithaca High School, class of 1969, already arriving, reforming old cliques, hanging with new cliques, or alone, entering their adolescence, recalling glory days, reliving the worst years of their lives, or coming home. They were returning for a victory lap. They had new shapes, facelifts, capped teeth, no teeth, deep lines, silently judged, were judged. Excitedly buzzed, did you see him, her, them? He's drunk, she's gay. Remember? What the fuck happened? How did I miss that one? The one that got away, who blossomed later. What was his, her name? You don't recognize me, do you? 25, 50 years of drama, a fire, AIDS, car accident, cancer, murder, bee sting. He overdosed, went to Harvard, Yale, went to hell and back. Never heard of again. He's rich, famous. She got so fat. We got so fat. She hasn't changed a bit. What was her name? Did you know they got together? Did you know they split? They pulled on their spouse's sleeve saying, let's go, let's go. They opened the doors, the right ones, the wrong ones. And one last poem, Yankee poem. I believe that people will be hurt, that people will recognize themselves, that there will be trouble right here in River City, that I can be unreasonable, that I have to get things out or bad things happen, that I am blamed, that I am yelled at. I believe I'm going to do it anyway, that I will find Graceland, if not grace, that I will tell the truth as I know it, that I am a know-it-all, that I will often be wrong, that I will destroy friendships if I tell the truth, that I will do it anyway. Thank you. And now I'd like to introduce my friend Mary Ladany. Mary Ladany retired from Caldwell University in Caldwell, New Jersey, after a decades-long career as a librarian, adjunct faculty, and director of the Writing Center. She now lives in Bovina, New York with her husband and their beloved border collie. Mary wrote and produced, having opened the book, a sequence of poetic conversations inspired by her late daughter's adolescence journals. She's collaborated with visual artists and dancers and the New York Theater Workshop. She's worked with aspiring young playwrights. Her chapbook, Where Sky is Water, was a semifinalist in the Orison Chapbook Prize. Welcome, Mary.
It's kind of fun being right in the middle. Oh, sorry. Now?
Just get up close to it.
Bring it closer.
Testing.
Yes.
Good. I was saying it's kind of fun being right in the middle. Because all the words are just spilling over into the room. Not only the words, but the experiences that have given rise to the words. About 2 years ago, we moved from a pretty bustling town in North Jersey to a very quiet, bucolic Bovina. So I brought 3 poems that really speak to this landscape that I've been getting to know. Coulter Brook. Water covers most of the planet, and some runs through my backyard. Winds its way through the town of Bovina, passing houses on Maple Ave and farms on County Highway 6. I've seen blackbirds and belted galloways drink from the brook. I know babies have been baptized by the fast-running water. Once, I put my goddaughter in an old wagon and wheeled her to its grassy banks, where we placed a blanket over forget-me-nots and clover. Then, beneath the cup of a porcelain sky, we supped on buttermilk biscuits round as the moon, and star-shaped cookies dipped in sugar-tinted gold. Pink streaked. The wind picks up the top layer of snow and whirls it wide, then wider, until the crystalline ice, a diaphanous dancer, disappears, becomes again what she was before the earth first moved her. Brush Cemetery. Approaching 60 I was that winter when I lay down in a field near the cemetery and made a snow angel. Beneath me, the deep, liquid sounds of Coulter Brook. Above me, pine trees shagged with ice and ghosts like smoke from a neighbor's chimney. In some other lifetime, I'm remembering I watched my daughter do the very same thing. Could that child, now lost to heaven, be watching me? How long I stayed there, I'm not certain. But sometime after the pink sun settled, but before a new moon began to rise, I got up and I walked away. Thank you. Well, it's really my good fortune to introduce Bertha Rogers. Bertha Rogers is a poet, translator, and visual artist. Her poetry collections from Salmon, Ireland include What One Brings, new and selected poems, Wild Again, and Heart Turned Back, as well as several chapbooks and interdisciplinary collections. My mouth is dry. Her translations of Beowulf was published in 2000, and her translation with illuminations of the Anglo-Saxon riddle poems from the Exeter book was published in 2019, Uncommon Creatures. She has been awarded fellowships by the MacDowell Colony, Hawthorne International Writers Retreat, and others. Her writings on inclusion and cultural diversity have been published in Open the Door, Education Week, and Poetry Foundation's Harriet Blog. Through Bright Hill Press and Literary Center for the Catskills, a literary organization she and her late husband, Ernest M. Fishman, founded. She served as a judge for the New York State High School Poetry Out Loud competition. Bertha.
Can everybody hear me? Yeah, okay. This poem is called Hawk's Reason. When the hawk leaves his tree for movement among the green, when he aims earthward, the air opens for him as if sliced by a bright knife, space disappearing into time's aperture. The nosing gray vole, knowing she will cease, sharply screams twice. The hawk flexes lightning bright talons, his wings broadcast intent, close and break like thunder, dimming June's new blades. When the hawk's blazing claws wreathe the vole's rolling body, his gleaming beak arcs toward the fleet heart, and blood's first, deepest drops through blue. The whole sky opens, blameless and distinct. This poem is called For the Girl Buried in the Peat Bog, Schleswig, Germany, 1st century AD. And she was one of many bog people, they call them, who were buried there or disposed of there. She always walks the dark world, head skewed to the cry of some sorrowing bird, left arm outflung, right enfolding the birch branches that arranged her death. They blinded her with a band woven from the colors of fire and sun and soil. They led her to shallow waters and made her lie down. They laid a plain stone over her nakedness. Her eyes closed from the force of color, and her face, delicate, forever 14, forgot her lover, found in the long violence before dying the expression of light. Deliver her, sight restored to her northern gods. Let this child's body grow back into the earth, eyes rest on luminescent roots, her final darkness. This poem is called Stone and Stand. First I was mountain, one among many, our shoulders shoved up, rough. We jostled and pushed, seeking blue. We grew meager from the ceaseless budding, our borders capturing, rupturing, rounding down to stippled smallness. Then I was stone, alone. I stood in a green field below a flimsy sky. I was hugely still. There was quiet around, within, just air and I. In time, faces with voices showed, limbs, hands. Grunting, they hoisted my bulk. They said nothing, pondered where they would at last set me down. They broke me. They piled me up with my kind. Now we rest together, screened by trees who seated themselves in our abraded bodies, thin skin, those high, shifting limbs, ours too. We are become a host, yet one, rooted, riveted. Fingered arms sign our big thoughts in air, but we hold. Stillness is our weary way. We are grove, and we slowly think, slow we go back from stand to range. Thank you. Our next reader is Pam Strother, and Pam, who is now retired, was a university teacher and practicing psychotherapist for more than 30 years. Writing poetry since first grade, she has organized poetry programs, readings, and seminars, and was a reviewer of poetry collections for Suarez Hill, a Key West, Florida newspaper. She's been a featured reader at the Robert Frost Poetry Festival, Key West, Florida, at Bright Hill Literary Center in Treadwell, and at Community Arts Network of Oneonta, New York, as well as a judge for Poetry Out Loud. In addition, she is also a 4 decades participant and leader of sacred celebrations and women's circles. Her chapbook, Here at the End of the Road, Key West Poems, was published in 2007. In 2017, she was contributor to Like Light, 25 Years of Poetry and Prose by Bright Hill Press Poets and Writers. She leads an online poetry workshop for Bright Hill Literary Center and Press. Pam Strother.
Good evening. How's the sound?
Good.
Okay. I'm going to read 3 poems tonight. The first one is called The Quarter. I am waiting for lunchtime. On the grass next to me is a brown paper bag with a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and an apple. I'm 8 years old at a Sunday school trip. We took a bus to get here and drove on a big bridge over a muddy river. A priest is way up front talking to us through a microphone. He has white hair and is old. I don't really understand what he's saying, but I like the sound of his voice. In the pocket of my dress, I have a quarter wrapped in a Kleenex. My father gave it to me this morning, saying I could spend 5 cents, but had to give back 20 cents to him when I got home. At noon, I will be able to buy a frosty bottle of grape soda from the soda truck. He could have given me a nickel, but I knew he wanted people to see the quarter and think we had a lot of money. The priest kept talking, and I reached into my pocket to feel the weight of the quarter in the tissue. It was gone. I started feeling around in the grass, crawling around, trying not to bump into the other kids. I whispered to some of them about my loss, and some of them helped me look. After a long time, I gave up. No quarter, no grape soda, no change from my father. The priest was still talking, but I was doomed. I had failed myself, failed as a daughter, and ruined my future by being careless. I didn't know it then, but that was the beginning of my lifelong struggle with money. I'm pausing for a moment because the next 2 poems are not funny. So laugh now and get ready. The next poem is called Undone. Daily tasks await my dream energy, piles of laundry, stacks of dishes careening above the sink rim, unmade beds, unplanted seedlings withering on the windowsill. My house, stories high, cavernous rooms leading from one to another, fully and tastefully furnished, awaiting guests that don't arrive. The impending trips, such deliberate and anxious preparations, packed suitcases that never leave the house, its curtains drawn against departure that doesn't begin. Always something undone, unfinished in my dreams. My lover, the sex, so close, but unconsummated. The kisses where lips don't quite meet. And babies I'm supposed to be nurturing, but I don't get around to them, don't hug them, don't bathe them. They don't cry. and I am confused by their silent, cherubic faces. In the backyard, carefully squared off and darkly deep, a grave awaits a coffin. The corpse is tardy, absent, gaping hole unfulfilled. And the last poem I'm reading is called No Funeral is Planned at This Time. I pet my dog as the wind blows through the pines. Somewhere, many somewheres, a bullet, a knife, a taser, a knee takes away the future, many futures. I didn't understand that I didn't understand. I thought we could be family, cry like family, reinvent ourselves like family, but now there are only news articles and mounting horror. So many of our kin filled with fear, then filled with evil. Let us name it truly, evil. Easy to understand. Pigment and apprehension drive culture. It's 1/10 of a millimeter until we get to sameness. Whether interred beneath the pines or rotting in some polluted stream bed, we are family. Why don't all of us mourn? Thank you, and now it's my great pleasure to introduce the incomparable Julie Suarez. A native of the Garden State, she lives in Oneonta, New York, formerly assistant professor of English for 34 years. Her poems have appeared in Salmagundi, Phoebe, Women's Voices of the 20th Century, La Pressa, The Traveler's Vademecum, and the New York Times Sunday Magazine, Planet Human Quarterly, and others. Her chapbook, It Does Not, was published by Bright Hill Press in 2006. She was a student in the master class in poetry at the New York State Summer Writers Institute for 30 years, where she studied with Robert Pinsky, Frank Godard, and others. In addition to writing poems, she gardens and sings with the Catskill Choral Society. Please welcome Julie Suarez.
I too am slowing down. Can you hear me? Is this good? Okay. Thank you. I'm going to read a mixture of things. Some are new, some are old. Those in the workshop have heard these probably, but perhaps they bear repeating. Credo. Believe this. Whatever you do can be undone. As the whisper-thin egg knocked from the nest, the blue pulpy chicks snatched and gobbled whole when the blue jay comes, and he always comes. The force of shoots through thawing soil spent when the deer traipse through to feed. Your careful plans, the garden tilled and laid out just so, most of it will come to naught. Like the sweet bouquet of dreams that blossom in the night, the long dead dog bounding to meet you, your mother's last embrace. In the morning, they're gone, leaving you only the vague sense that something passed before your eyes, something you almost touched. Night walking. I still haven't learned the sequence, how to pace myself, what leads to what, and which doors I should not open. Remember the fairy tales? One door disaster, one delight. Only the pure of heart can choose rightly. Once made, the choice cannot be reversed. In the dusky hallway, doorknobs disappear. Which room is which? What are you doing, the dog asks. Here, take the tip of my tail. Together we can pass through walls and boundaries. I'll lead you through the labyrinth. You can pass through walls and boundaries to spaces you haven't been permitted to walk since childhood. This is the house that held you. Here is the room where you slept. Listen to the wind swirling the broad hands of the sycamores. My parents were products of the Depression, as might be true for some of you. This poem is called Frugal. My parents saved string, balled tightly or wound in skeins, hung on nails or pegs, ready to use again. My father saved wire and metal scrap and shingles left over from our house, nails and screws sorted into tobacco cans, labeled on the cellar shelves. Jars my mother saved, all sizes for jam and pickles and rhubarb, little ones for buttons and snaps, leftover embroidery floss, hooks missing their eyes. The house swelled with possibilities, recipes ripped out but never tried, plans for a greenhouse, for Windsor chairs, the broken, the needy, china to be glued, dolls to mend, dresses needing alteration, linen still pressed between layers of tissue, saved for good, in the hope chest with the baby dresses, the wedding veil, the Navy uniform, for that time which was not then, is not now. Inland. Here, so far from the sound of breaking waves, I remember the sea, how its wide arms frightened me, such openness, such restlessness, churning all night and churning in the morning still. It hadn't slept, it couldn't sleep, and I, so far inland in this deep green place, greet each day just as restless. I know that elsewhere the sea is churning over bones, over wrecks of men sunken with their dreams, last breaths rising in nets of pearl, such power to sculpt the land. Even here, 100 miles from shore, I turn up fossils, tiny shells of creatures turned to stone. Tonight, when cars hiss by on the wet road, I hear waves that lapped these valleys, overawed these hills, feel the pull of tides across my feet. At Niskemaquot Beach, Rhode Island, October 29, 2022. Sea froth doilies lap the shore, the tide comes in. A seal skirts the waves' break, and overhead, gulls wait for tossed bread or any stranded life. I had forgotten what the sea says, and says again and again, and how it wants everything, tugging at my ankles, beckoning me to come inside beneath its curving glass. Surely it does not remember me, my restlessness, my longing, or the longing of so many gazing out across its face, all of us chained to time. But it opens long arms to me and takes each year a little more beach until where we stand this instant is gone, and we are gone, and any trace we might leave. This is a poem from my father. Prayer for an easy passing. Lord, let the good man go. Ease him over the edge of time. Let him slip silently between the slats that fence us out of what's beyond. Let him be light on rain-washed leaves, morning air across our faces, the coolness rising from the dew-refreshed garden at the end of the day. Let him drive back roads in the old Chevy, elbow out the window, wind in his hair, an old song on his lips, all his transgressions flying out the wing window, curled in the tendrils of pipe smoke. Lord, let him go. And this is the last one, Catbird. Nowadays, the catbird is my muse. He sings at twilight in the yews every song he's ever heard, strung along his own squeaks and chips. He's willing to try anything, it seems, cell phone to trumpet voluntary, and of course he meows. He likes my garden. Bent low, I work over one end of the strawberry patch, he the other, turning leaves with his black bill till he finds the ripest berries. He honors me by not flying off, trusting that I'll stick to my berry picking and leave him to his. His eye shines out among the leaves and his slate gray feathers. We come nearly close enough to touch. Some evenings when I hear him in the trees, I whistle him a bit of any tune that comes. Now and then, I hear my song come back. Thank you. The next reader is Julene Waffle. Julene is a wonderful poet. She teaches at Morris Central School and SUNY Oneonta. At Morris, she advises clubs and coaches. She's active in her community and co-owns Colonial Ridge Golf Course in Lawrence. She's the mother of 3 sons, 3 cats, 2 dogs, and a bearded dragon. I'd love to meet. She finds pleasure in juggling these jobs while seeming like she has it all together. She earned degrees from Hartwood College and Binghamton University. And although she asked me to cross this all out, I'm going to tell you where she's been published. The Adroit Journal blog, NCTE's English Journal, Malexa, the Annals of Internal Medicine, the Bangalore Review, Sky Island, the Blue Mountain Review, Sequestrum, among other journals and anthologies. Her chapbook, So I Will Remember, Woodland Arts Edition 2020, and I'm sure she's got another one in the works. Welcome, Julene Waffle.
How's that?
Yes. Yes.
Excellent. So Julie's right. Seeming like I have it all together is a key word in my life. Most of the time I feel like I'm going about 50 directions, and so I'm going to give you a little taste of that. All the poems I'm going to read tonight are completely different. And the first one is called Blue Horses. And the thing about horses is that I love them. I think they're amazing, beautiful, gorgeous things. And yet, when I get near them, I turn into a giant, something like a giant Stay Puft marshmallow in a microwave. I get all swelly and allergies. This is my poem about what it would be like if I didn't. Blue Horses. When the slick-bodied boss mare stops in the blue-black night, the whole racing band stops too. They see me, a mother-bodied being, 2 legs, all dough and bend. We watch each other until I too run. The rust of the earth lifts and flies in clods, and the long grass cleaves under my weight, and when the silver in my mane gleams Milky Way, all the mares follow me. And I had another poem picked, but I realized a little while ago that it's an anniversary month of a little boy who passed in my school, so I'm giving you a trigger warning. It's sad, at least for me. And it's called For Ennis, For My Boys. 1. I forgot to tuck you in last night. You yelled from the hallway, "Good night, Mommy and Daddy, I love you." And I called back the appropriate response. I didn't go to your room, didn't let you play with my hair, didn't hug or kiss you. I didn't even look in the direction of your voice. I let you close your eyes without seeing mine. And the next day, when my coworker woke up and her 9-year-old didn't, I couldn't help but think that could have been you. A fluke, a fever, one less child in the world. 2. All week, I wanted to write a poem for him. All week, I knew I had written something down somewhere, but I had lost it. All week, I caught myself sighing, tiny groans, little gut punches jetting little griefs from my lungs that hung over me like empty thought bubbles in cartoons, like thought bubbles filled with invisible ellipses, like chopping carrots, while planting a garden, while feeding the dogs. I didn't even know I was thinking about him. 3. Today I found the notebook where I had written him. I couldn't read it. 4. His pages were tucked between a response to a prompt, tell them I love them and that I wish I had done better. I should try harder. And notes from a comedy class. Everything can be funny in life. I don't think so. 5. Today, I saw his little body sleeping in his casket, his mom and dad, his aunts, photos, strangers crying, his brothers missing. They had felt enough. 6. The last time I saw him, he was a little wind, hopping and skipping and spinning all the way to the parking lot from school, his mother in tow, reaching for his hand, trying to tame his enchanting, wild and free. 7. I couldn't breathe. I am sorry I left you my voice for the privacy of the car. Told a friend to tell you where I went without pulling you from your friends, without hugging you, embarrassment be damned, without looking at you in your eyes and telling you I love you until I was sure you believed it. And I'm sorry, my lovely boys, that your first calling hours were for a little boy. And the last one, hopefully will make you feel better. I'm sure all of us have had a bad breakup somewhere along in the past, and this is one of those times. You compared me to a scab. Yep. You compared me to a scab in that poem I found in the trash you forgot to empty. You denied everything, saying, sometimes life is fiction. Then I caught you singing to her across a crowded bar. I called you at her house, warned her, once a cheater, always a cheater, told you to get your stuff. And you showed up in your Jeep with her. She never unbuckled. Was she your backbone? Did you expect me to invite her in for sun tea with lemon? I told you from the top of the stairs, you're a coward. But deep down, I already knew that. Hearts love who they love, but I'm keeping the dog. And it is with my great pleasure that I introduce our last poet for the evening, my best poet bud, one of my best poet buds, Vicki Whicker. She has been published in literary magazines and anthologies, including Literary Mama, 12 Los Angeles Poets, Big City Mantra, Moth Magazine as editor, and a monthly column for Bayaran book, Dungabrook Diary. Her chapbooks include Crazy Girl, Chinese Business Journal, Life Rocks On, Requiem for the May Queen, and Terra Firma and Other Lies. Her iPhonography has been the focus of several solo shows in New York and Los Angeles, and after a career on the West Coast specializing in footwear design, she moved east in 2011 to renovate an 1820s farmhouse that she bought sight unseen from a Facebook post.
Oh, man.
Downtime finds her exploring back roads with Pico, her golden pup.
Thank you, Julie. Hi, everybody. You're still here. Hey. Okay. First, I want to say thank you, Robert Vincent, for putting my photographs on the front and the back of our anthology. And thank you, Robert, for everything you do. I'm going to read two from my book, Caught Before Flight, which also Robert had a great hand in helping bring to life. Okay, and sorry to my poet friends who've heard these before, but we still have some people in pajamas who haven't heard these. This is called Caught Before Flight. It's hard to read when you have this thing. Caught Before Flight, Lake of the Ozarks, 1975. A sparkle of sun on smooth water, clouds, muscle of blue sky. I still have this picture tucked into a dusty red photo album. I stand with my father on the dock of the lake. Behind us, the people of summer drift in their boats. My father holds my waist as we pose. His stiff arm keeps a distance between us. I tilt my head away, let the breeze play with my hair, my hands at my waist, caught before flight. He wears jeans and oil-stained boat shoes. I go barefoot in denim cutoffs. My new breasts pressed like pastel sweet cakes into a tube top. Behind the camera, my mother captures father in a stiff grin. He can no longer cover me up with guilt, with clothing, with his eyes. This is my summer of love. He is my chauffeur. Over his shoulder, two teenage boys grin like wolves at my abundance. I look into the camera's eye and smile. Summer begins. Days spent skinny dipping with local boys in secret coves. Wet skins arc like minnows. Nights filled with stars pasted into a distant sky. Ear kisses from the dark-haired boy. The blonde boys, warm fingers desperate inside my yellow bikini. The storm hits 3rd of July, heat lightning first, torrential rain by morning, leaves drop into the lake with the weight of the wind. Father wakes us at dawn with the car's heater on full blast. We race in silence down slick back roads towards home. We race as if with so much speed he could leave behind what I had found. This next poem, my one and only food poem. Of course, it has other things in it. I can just write about food. Paella. Oh, that one. Okay. Paella means for you, he says. And I try not to drink the bottle of wine, but fail. Further intoxicated by the musky, smoky brine of his dish. We kiss and his tongue is crazy delicious. I might have a thirst to slake. My first paella was in Spain, in a dark bar in Alicante, a business lunch that took forever. Finally, paella, sizzling in a wide pan, but salty, overcooked, brown, an impossible swallow. A memorable mediocrity. But this is Paella de Antonio, a garish party, a whiff of chaos, a sublime of seafood, clams in their half-shell, swollen rice, toothsome yet tender. A dish so wild with desire that it survives the centuries. On the way to bed, the black dress and push-up bra dissolve. You first, he says. I want you naked. But he is dressed like a cowboy in button shirt and Latigo belt, looking like what he is, the gentleman from Mendoza. A contrast to my Midwest and white, as rounded as the grains of rice he gilded with saffron. I am dimpled like the paella pan. I hold my breath, I am 46. I want his 55 to be the naked one. I need to see patches of fur on his back. I need to know his imperfections like I know my own. But he is smooth, naked, caramel, the color of sukara, the color of the rice that sticks to the paella pan that we scrape and savor with our tongues. And he is hard. He is always hard. You make me hard, he says. And I am wet. I am always wet. You make me wet, I say. His English and my Spanish trip and tangle. We understand less than half of each other's lives. When he falls asleep, I lift the sheets to inhale our oceans, the deep that we swam in, the warm beaches we tanned on, the worlds we created, rearranged, and lost. And I repeat the words I think he whispered, sukra, sukra, sukra. At breakfast, when he says we are getting old, he means the people at his reunion in Mendoza. Yes, we are old, I agree. He digs into his eggs, a sexy, hungry man. I taste him warm in my mouth like wine. It's hard to keep a distance, and harder yet to know that I'm not fooling anyone. I want this man to remember my name. I want to know I was not alone. I want us to have been a perfect union between two cultures, a dish so wild with desire that we survive the centuries. This is my last one from the new anthology. My first love. I wait inside, spring, cold, blooming, tight in my chest, false winter outside, white, unforgiving, tamping lives. Where is love? I remember you, my first, and my mother, oblivious behind her red door, taming geraniums. Boy, love is a hot dirt road. Your smile, a mile of country built for teenagers, fast and green, all legs and mouth, flip-flops, tan feet, short shorts, no helmets, long hair whipping wild on a black motorcycle. We were until we weren't. Were we ever of this sweet earth? Time tilts as she will. Some are meant for return, like the peonies in my garden. Please remember, if you knock, I will open like 1,000 suns. Thank you.
Just one more round of thank you to the poets and to the readers and audience that have enjoyed our paella, if I may, of poetry, of life's great moments with sex and roadkill and a little more sex. So how about a Thank you very much. There are still some goodies over there. There's some goodies up here. If you want to go home with some poems that you heard tonight and more, there's them. And if you want to take some cookies, help yourself. Thank you very much.
Thank you.